Welcome to our channel. Today we are sharing a powerful African story about two best friends, Kwame and Kofi, who grew up in the exact same neighborhood but chose two completely different paths in life. One friend chased fast money, greedy friends, and the bright lights of the city. The other friend chose a quiet life of hard work, honesty, and faith in God. This is a story about big mistakes, true friendship, and how God can change any life. Make sure to watch until the very end to see what happens, and subscribe if you like folktale like this. Deep in the heart of the big busy city of Oberländer, two young boys grew up like brothers. Their names were Kwame and Kofi. When they were children, they walked down the same dusty streets, went to the same church every Sunday, and listened to the wise words of the village elders. But as the years passed and they became young men, a change began to happen. They stood at the crossroads of life, looking at two completely different futures. Kwame looked at the bright, glittering lights of the city center. He saw the expensive cars, the tall glass buildings, and he felt a deep hunger for fast money and fame. On the other hand, Kofi looked at the simple things. He held his Bible close to his heart and decided that he wanted a peaceful life built on honesty, hard work, and faith in God. As time went on, Kwame started to change. He stopped coming to church and began spending his nights in the dark, hidden corners of the city. He joined a group of dishonest men who played illegal gambling games and looked for ways to trick people. Kwame told himself that he was just doing this for a short time to get rich, and then he would stop. One evening, Kofi found him sitting in a dark alley and tried to talk to him as a true brother. Kofi held his hand and warned him gently, saying, "My brother Kwame, please listen to me. Money that you win by cheating will disappear very quickly, but money that you earn through honest hard work will grow and bring a blessing." But Kwame just shook his head, laughed loudly at Kofi, and told him that he was too old-fashioned to understand how the modern city works. It did not take long for Kwame to find the wealth he was searching for, but it came at a very high price. He joined a group of corrupt men who cheated poor, uneducated farmers out of the rights to their own land. Kwame became very rich from this wicked business. He threw away his old sandals and bought expensive designer leather shoes, fine clothes, and a very fast, shiny black sports car. He loved to drive back into his old, humble neighborhood, revving the loud engine just to show off his new wealth. He would throw handfuls of cash into the air, watching the poor people scramble to pick it up. From the steps of the local free clinic where he volunteered, Kofi watched this painful sight. Kofi's heart was heavy with sorrow because he knew that a life built on hurting others is like a house built on loose sand. It cannot stand for long. While Kwame was busy chasing after worldly riches, Kofi continued to walk along a very quiet and humble path. He worked every single day as an apprentice in a hot carpentry workshop, learning how to cut wood from an old master. At night, when his body was tired and aching, he sat by a small lamp and read his Bible. His life was not fancy at all. There were many days when he did not have enough money for meat, so he sat alone and ate simple roasted corn and drank water. Yet, even though he was poor, his face always carried a bright, beautiful smile. He had a deep peace inside his heart that money could never buy. Every Saturday afternoon, the children of the neighborhood would run to meet him under the shade of a massive, ancient baobab tree. There, Kofi would tell them stories from the Bible and teach them how to be good, honest children. Kwame's proud and wayward life soon reached a dangerous peak. He bought a massive luxury mansion on top of a hill using the money he had stolen from the poor farmers. To celebrate, he threw a giant party and invited the most powerful, corrupt people in the city. The music was deafening and flashing neon lights filled the night sky. In the middle of the party, Kwame stood on top of a table with a golden cup in his hand. He laughed arrogantly, poured expensive drinks all over the floor, and shouted, "Look at me, I am the master of my own life. I do not need anyone, and I do not need God." He was so blinded by his success that he completely forgot the ancient truth taught by the elders. Pride always walks right before a terrible destruction, and an arrogant mind leads straight to a fall. On that exact same night, far away from the loud party, Kofi was facing a great test of his own faith. A wealthy, corrupt businessman walked into the quiet carpentry shop. He laid a heavy briefcase on the table, opened it, and showed Kofi stacks of crisp new money. The man whispered a wicked deal. He wanted Kofi to use cheap rotten wood to build the roof of a new public school for children, and then they would split the extra money. Kofi looked at the cash, which could pay all his bills for years. Then he looked at the businessman. Without any fear, Kofi closed the briefcase firmly and pushed it away. He looked the man in the eyes and said, "My honesty is not for sale. I will never build a weak roof that might fall on innocent children. I do my work to honor God, not to please greedy men." The man became furious, grabbed his money, and stormed out. Not long after that night, a dark cloud of trouble began to gather over the city of Oberlande. The government appointed a new, honest judge who promised to clear out all the criminals. Suddenly, the secret crimes of Kwame's group were discovered. The police began arresting his partners one by one. When Kwame heard the news on the television, a cold fear filled his heart. The expensive walls of his mansion suddenly felt like a cage. He hired armed security guards to stand at his gates, but they could not protect his mind from terror. He spent his nights pacing up and down his dark living room, jumping at every little sound outside. He realized with great bitterness that all his millions of dollars could not buy him a single minute of peace or a good night's sleep. While Kwame's kingdom of cardboards was falling apart, Kofi's honest life began to bear beautiful fruit. His old boss, the master carpenter, called Kofi into his office. With tears of joy in his eyes, the old man handed Kofi the keys to the workshop and said, "You are the most honest man I know. I am retiring and I am giving this entire business to you as a gift." Just a few days later, the city leaders visited Kofi. They had heard about his refusal to take bribes and his high-quality work. They awarded him a massive, honest contract to build the city's new community center. Kofi was overwhelmed with joy. He did not boast or throw a party. Instead, he knelt straight down into the sawdust on the floor, lifted his hands, and thanked God for always taking care of those who walk in truth. Then came the terrible night when Kwame's world finally cracked wide open. It was a dark, stormy Tuesday when the loud wail of police sirens echoed down his street. Looking out the window, Kwame saw the flashing red and blue lights drawing close to his home. In a panic, his greedy friends ran out the back door, taking his gold and his expensive watches with them, leaving him completely alone. Terrified of going to jail, Kwame left everything behind and fled into the dark night. The rain poured down heavily, soaking his expensive clothes and mixing with the thick mud of the alleyways. He ran for hours until his legs were weak and his chest was burning. He had no money left, no friends to call, and no place to hide. In his deepest despair, a picture of his old friend Kofi flashed across his mind. It was past midnight, and Kofi was sitting quietly in his small, warm living room, reading the comforting words of the Psalms. Suddenly, a frantic, desperate pounding shook his wooden front door. Kofi rushed to open it, and when he did, he was shocked by what he saw. Standing in the pouring rain was not the proud, rich Kwame who had mocked him, but a broken, shivering man covered from head to toe in black mud. Kwame fell to his knees on the doorstep, crying bitter tears. He grabbed Kofi's legs and screamed, "Kofi, please help me. I have lost everything. The police are hunting for me, and I have nowhere else to go." Kofi did not say, "I told you so." He did not judge his friend. Instead, he immediately reached down, wrapped his arms around Kwame, and pulled him into the warmth of his home. Kofi gave Kwame a clean change of clothes and a warm bowl of soup to stop his shivering. Kwame sat by the small stove, staring at the floor in deep shame. He looked around Kofi's humble house and said in a quiet voice, "Kofi, I do not understand. I had everything. I had houses, cars, and power, but today I am a beggar. You have always lived in this small house, yet you have so much peace. How did this happen?" Kofi sat down across from him and looked at him with eyes full of love. He answered softly, "Kwame, you spent all your time chasing after the things God can give, but you forgot God himself. You built your life on money, which can disappear in one night. What good is it for a man to win the whole world if he loses his soul in the end?" As the rain started to slow down, Kwame looked at the window and whispered, "Kofi, you must help me run away. I need to get to the border and cross into another country before the sun comes up." But Kofi shook his head and stood up straight. He knew that true love must speak the hard truth. He placed a strong hand on Kwame's shaking shoulder and said, "No, Kwame, running away will never clean your heart. If you want to be truly free, you must stop running from your mistakes. In the morning, you must go to the police station and turn yourself in. You must face the law and pay for what you did. But listen to me. I promise that I will not leave you. I will stand by you through it all, and more importantly, God will forgive you if you confess." For a long time, there was absolute silence in the room as a great war raged inside Kwame's heart. He was terrified of losing his freedom and going to a dark prison cell. But as he looked at Kofi's face, he realized that he had been a miserable prisoner to his own greed for many years. He was tired of running. He was tired of the lies. Suddenly, Kwame fell from his chair onto his knees. He raised his hands to heaven, burst into tears, and cried out from the bottom of his soul, "Oh God, please save me. I have lived a wicked life, and I have hurt so many people. Please forgive my pride, wash my sins away, and change my heart." Kofi knelt right beside him, put his arm around his broken friend, and prayed with him, welcoming the wayward son back to God. When the morning sun finally rose over Oberlende, the two friends walked out of the house side by side. They walked down the main road, right through the crowded morning market, heading straight toward the city police headquarters. The people in the market stopped what they were doing and stared in complete shock. They whispered to one another, "Is that not Kwame, the arrogant billionaire? Why is he walking on foot, and why is he going to the police?" Kwame heard their whispers, but he did not bow his head in shame. For the first time in his adult life, there was a quiet, steady dignity in his steps. He knew that his body was about to lose its freedom, but because of Jesus, his soul was finally and completely free from the chains of sin. The judge in the High Court looked at Kwame's crimes and sentenced him to 10 years inside the maximum security prison. The prison was a terrible grey place made of cold concrete and heavy iron bars. It was filled with dangerous, angry men who had lost all hope. But Kwame did not complain about the bad food or the hard bed. He accepted his punishment as the proper harvest of his past life. Every morning, he sat on his concrete floor, opened the small Bible that Kofi had given him, and began to read it out loud. At first, the other prisoners mocked him, but as they saw his quiet patience and his kind heart, they began to sit around him and listen. Kwame started telling them about the mercy of God, turning his dark cell into a bright place of hope. Outside the thick prison walls, Kofi proved what it means to be a true Christian brother. Every single Saturday morning, no matter how tired he was, Kofi paid for a long bus ride to visit Kwame. He would sit at the visitors' table, share words of encouragement from the Bible, and make Kwame laugh. But Kofi did not stop there. He took a large portion of the profits from his booming carpentry business and did something wonderful. He traveled to the village and found the poor farming families that Kwame had cheated years ago. Kofi gave them money, helped them buy food, and apologized on behalf of his friend. He spent his own resources to repair the broken paths that Kwame's greed had created. As the years rolled by, an extraordinary change began to happen inside the prison walls. Kwame's work grew into a massive spiritual revival. The hardened criminals looked at Kwame and said, "If God can change a rich, greedy man like Kwame and give him joy in prison, he can change me too." Gang leaders broke their weapons and fell to their knees in tears. Men who used to steal and fight began to sing beautiful songs of praise to God under the open sky of the prison yard. The prison wardens were completely amazed. They wrote reports stating that the most violent section of the prison had suddenly become the most peaceful and orderly place, all because one wayward son had decided to serve the Lord with all his heart. Because of his wonderful behavior and the incredible positive change he brought to the prison, the government decided to release Kwame early. He served 7 years of his sentence. On a beautiful, bright morning, the heavy iron gates of the prison creaked open with a loud sound. Kwame walked out into the fresh air, holding a single box of his belongings, and there, standing right across the street, was Kofi. He was waiting by his truck with the exact same warm, loving smile he had carried since they were boys. Kwame ran to him, and the two friends embraced each other tightly. Tears of pure joy ran down their faces as they thanked God for keeping them alive to see this glorious day of freedom and restoration. Kwame did not try to go back to his old life of luxury or chase after quick money again. He moved into a very small, simple room near Kofi's house and became a full partner in the carpentry workshop. Now, Kwame's hands, which had once signed dishonest land contracts, were full of calluses from cutting wood, building tables, and doing honest work. The two friends worked side by side every day, singing praises to God as they built beautiful furniture for local schools and churches. Kwame also became a powerful youth leader in the community church. Every week, hundreds of young boys would gather to hear him preach. He would tell them his story, warning them with deep passion never to fall into the traps of greed, pride, and the deceptive lifestyle of the world. Now, when the sun begins to set over the great city of Oberländer, painting the sky in beautiful colors of orange and gold, the old storytellers sit with the children and tell them the tale of the two friends. They say that life is like planting seeds in the ground. One seed tried to grow too fast in poor, rocky soil and was destroyed by the heat. But the other seed grew slowly in good, honest soil and brought a great harvest that blessed everyone around it. Kwame and Kofi now stand together on the balcony of the new community center they built with their own hands. They look out at the beautiful city lights, older, wiser, and deeply content. They had learned the greatest lesson of all, that the riches of this world pass away like a brief shadow, but a life lived in obedience to God will stand strong and shine forever. Now we need your opinion. Thanks for watching. If you were the good friend, what will you have done? Tell us in the comment section.